Sirius quilt along, which is so exciting. Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to week 1 of our Sirius quilt along. My name is Holly, a Knight of String and Story, and it's my job to guide you to quilt with confidence. I am so excited to be jumping in to make this fabulous quilt together. Now, admittedly, I'm biased. It's one of my patterns, but I am thrilled because this is a really fun quilt that comes together quickly, has some really good skill building involved in it. And as we sew our way through the heat of summer, I just think we're going to have a blast. So if you are here with me, okay, good. Hopefully my throat is clear now. If you are here with me live, do say hi in the chat so I can give you a shout out. My dear Instagram folks, I'm going to have to try to catch your questions as you scroll by quickly. I see Susan and Christy and Penny and others. Good morning, Dot and Nicole over on YouTube. Bonnie as well. Jane, hello, hello. Canada is representing. I love that. Good morning, Helen in Maryland. It is fabulous to see y'all. Now, today is all about choosing fabrics. If you count carefully, you will recognize that Sirius has a lot of colors. 5 is a pretty high number of fabrics for a pattern. We've done a few recently that have had this many. We've also done a few recently that don't have this many. But I want to talk through some of my logic on choosing this fabric. And then I'm also going to shamelessly show off some of the quilts that the quilt patterns that we still have in stock, and shamelessly plug our sale. So if you're watching this in real time, of course, Friday is the 4th of July, but here in Atlanta, July 4th also means Peachtree Road Race. The Peachtree Road Race is the world's largest 10K, and you better believe I will be out there running in the heat come Friday morning. On Thursday is the Peachtree Junior. So our entire week as a family is all about these iconic races. So here at String and Story, I figured we would have a sale. So if you're watching this in real time, and I will repeat this many, many times during our video today, all of our yardage is on sale using code Peachtree for 25% off. So as we're talking about fabric this morning, maybe one of these kits that I've already put together will speak to you. But if you feel inspired to choose your own colors and fabrics, I've tried to make that a little bit easier. Okay. All right. I think Stephanie has jumped on. So has Janet. I'd also like to congratulate all of you who have joined the quilt along, because this is our largest String and Story quilt along to date, which is really exciting. So thank you for being part of that. All right, let's go through the parts of the Sirius quilt, if you will with me. If you have your pattern, of course, on the back, it has outlined the 5 colors plus your backing and your binding. But we're going to just kind of go through point by point, and talk about the different roles that these colors play. Now, ideally, I would have a big one here behind me to gesture to. This is our lovely Star Island from our last quilt along. I have not finished a big Sirius with the new layout yet, but it's coming and it's going to be so good. Okay. The hero of this quilt is, of course, these star points. So on our pattern cover, they are orange. Those are going to be the most noticeable thing. They are the main character energy of this quilt. So my recommendation when you are choosing fabric is to start with those. Pick something bold, bright, and delightful for those star points. And then the next thing I'm going to recommend picking, is your background. So you can choose what's going to be the highlight with the star points, and then pick something contrast to be your background. Okay, so for example, on this here lovely quilt, I'm calling this one Sunshine in the Garden because the mock-up, my printer was not doing so great. It was on the struggle bus, but the mock-up looks a whole lot like sunflowers at either sunrise or sunset. So on this one, my star points are this really bright yellow speckled, right? And they are going to absolutely zing against the lovely pink of this background, right? I did something a little different with this Punk Rock Luck kit, and I actually chose black for the star points, but showing up against this kind of mauve background. So you can see we want our highest point of contrast to be those star points and the background. Now, these are also the 2 sections of the quilt that I would recommend that you pick something that is kind of solid adjacent. Okay, it doesn't have to be a pure solid. Obviously, this speckled is not. Neither is this black dot, right? But it has a really obvious main color. Okay, it's a very different from what I did with Star Island, right? Star Island, I actually had my boldest, least solid fabrics in my star points and my background. And the ratios of the fabrics on that quilt, that worked out okay. This was still kind of a high risk choice, right? We talked about that during the last quilt along, but it worked. However, for Sirius, there's some really big sections of background. So if you pick a background fabric that has a lot going on, you run the risk of losing the design, right? Very much the deal with this Sirius quilt is that you have two design elements that need to pop. We have that primary star, which we've been talking about, right? But then you also have these chains that connect with each other across the quilt. And if we don't have enough contrast from the background, if the background is too busy, or if those other fabrics don't pop against it enough, we're going to lose those two key design elements that make Sirius so fun to look at, okay? By the way, I'm going through all of this, and you know I love to just dive in and go whole hog. For those of you that are just joining us, or this is maybe the first time that you have heard about the Sirius Quilt Along, if you are on Instagram, you can head to the link in my bio and you will find all of the information that you need. If you are on YouTube or Facebook, I am dropping this link down in the chat. It should also be in the caption of the video. Or if you head to stringandstory.com, there's a big banner at the top of our website right now. stringandstory.com/blog/Sirius QAL. Okay. Also, as I'm going through all of this, please feel free to interrupt me with questions at any point, okay? I am doing my best to watch as they're scrolling, especially over on Instagram. It's hard for me to reach y'all to scroll back up if I lose those questions, so I'm going to try to catch them as they go by, all right? So once we've decided our primary points of contrast, I'll show you these other two kits just for the interest of it. This one's kind of an inverse. Pink star points, right? Iron background. All right, this is going to be a really fun... This one's really fun. You can see I was out of pink toner when I printed these. And then this is a much more kind of classic pattern. So these bronze star points on a black, subtly printed background, okay? But notice, while there are some bold prints in all of these kits, for my star points in my background, I have kept it pretty focused and minimal, okay? That's really important to make sure that that design pops as we go to piece our quilt. Now we have square designs. Savannah, that's enough. That's enough. Okay. We have square and a square design. Sorry, there's someone at my door asking me questions. We have square and a square designs for our last three elements. There's a square and a square in the center of our star. All right, and then we're going to use square and a square to piece those chains as well. That way we're not working with anything super funky and too on the bias, and it allows us to piece these piece this quilt as two blocks. Okay, we have our star block, and then we have what looks like a 5 on a set of dice, right, or on a die. So we can alternate those blocks by using these square and a square. What's going to be super fun about this quilt along, guys, is that the way that I have written this pattern is for traditional piecing, right? To make those square and a squares. We're going to have squares, we're going to slice them, we're going to add them on. I'll talk about finding the center point and all of that. But you can also foundation paper piece those square and a squares. And it is a very user-friendly block to be paper piecing. So if you're new to FPP, this is a perfect opportunity to learn. And it makes it easier to do my favorite recommendation for these units, which is to fussy cut, especially inside the star, right there, especially inside the star. That square and a square is begging to be a fussy cut. I mean, begging. These particular kits, I did not do fabric for fussy cutting. I wanted you to be able to follow the traditional method. But if you are choosing fabric, or perhaps you're spending the summer doing a little bit of stash busting and you've got some funky things in your stash that would lend themselves to some nice little fussy cuts, the center of these stars and even the chains is a fantastic place to put those, okay? You don't necessarily need a ton of contrast between the star center and the star points. On this particular mock-up, I have one. right? Sometimes it is easier when I am creating a pattern cover to do lots of contrast for all the different things so that it's easy for you to see what color is what, right? But when you're doing this in real life, you don't necessarily need a high amount of contrast between the star center and the star itself. But a cool fussy cut, something that coordinates nicely inside there, something that, like I said, if you want a stash bust, you can do that. So, oh, Stephanie says, what is a fussy cut? So a fussy cut, let me find a fabric that's good. Hang on. So I have this horse fabric, right? So a fussy cut would be if I made sure that one horse landed directly in the middle of the block. Okay, so where I have that star center, that white diamond on my cover, if there was a horse right in the middle of it, so not slightly off center, not like part of a horse face, but I very specifically cut out that horse so it lands in the middle. Great question. And like I said, that's a little bit easier to do with foundation paper piecing than traditional piecing. But I'm going to show you both ways so that we can make that happen. Okay. Alyssa says, do you have the FPP pattern available? Yes. Inside our free Confident FPP workbook. So stringandstory.com/digital education. By the way, if you're signed up for the quilt along, this link is going to go out in an email when we get to that lesson. But yes, we have created the templates for you for free. I believe we also put a QR code in the pattern that you can scan and get that workbook so that it's nice and easy for you to print those out and make that adaptation inside the pattern. Great question, Alyssa. Thank you for asking it. Finally, we have our lovely little chains that are going to go across here, okay? Alyssa says, just printed that this morning. Yes, I love it. We have these lovely little chains that go across, right? These are kind of Irish chain adjacent. They always make me think a little bit of railroad tracks whenever I look at them. And we have what I've called the main sparkles because there's more of them that are depicted in yellow. And then the secondary sparkle that is that light blue in the center. Any of these are also great opportunities for fussy cutting, for putting a design right there in the center. But when it comes to choosing fabrics for these, they just need to complement. They need to stand out against the background, maybe not necessarily as much as your star points stand out, but enough that the design is going to be visible and cohesive. And they need to be colors and fabrics that coordinate with the rest of the whole. They kind of fill in the gaps, if you will, right? So as I was using this punk rock as an example earlier, right? And we have our very bold star points that are black and our high contrast kind of mauve background. And then I stuck with really high contrast items for the rest of my fabrics. So this kind of pink fuzzy fabric is the center of the stars. And then I have black and white fabrics, a white dot and a black fuzzy for my railroad track. So everything is going to pop kind of aggressively off that background, right? For our sunshine in the garden, I did do another high contrast situation here. If we've got yellow star points, I put red centers. I think that really makes those stars look more like flowers. And then some gentler kind of pinky red for those main sparkles. And then a nice cream speckled for the center, right? I like having that center sparkle pop a little bit extra. I think it adds some dimension to the pattern, okay? Any questions about how to choose colors and fabrics thus far? Let's see. Barbara, oh, that's not a question. Oh, sorry. Those of you on YouTube, I apologize for leaning over you. I want to reach Instagram to make sure that I didn't miss any questions. Okay. Someday, Instagram is going to make that easier to do. But in the meanwhile, I'll just scroll. It's totally fine. There is one other thing that I want to mention since I've talked so much about adapting this with a fussy cut. And that is that if you do decide to fussy cut designs to go into the center blocks, you may want to consider getting a little bit of extra fabric, right? We are making the small throw, which is 60 inches square, as part of this quilt along. And for the star centers, the main sparkles and the secondary sparkles, you either need a quarter or a half a yard, depending on which one. I would round up by a quarter to half a yard, right? Worst case scenario, you end up with a little bit of extra, but fussy cutting is not the most efficient way to use fabric because you're literally like cutting bits out of the middle, right? Think about like when your kids are small and they're learning how to use scissors, and you've got the big thing of construction paper and they've got their little pair of kid scissors, right? And you're teaching them how to make a collage so that they're getting practice cutting things out with the scissors, and you're having them cut shapes and things out of construction paper and then glue it onto another piece of paper to make a picture, right? And inevitably, they need a circle, right? And so what do? You show them the trick of like, oh, if you fold the fabric, then you can just cut a half circle and it turns into a circle. Cool, cool, cool. They need a circle that's this big. They could just come in from the edge of the page and cut it right down in the corner. No, what do? Every time, fold that paper in half, cut a circle right out of the middle, so the rest of it feels basically useless, right? Fussy cutting's a little bit like that you're cutting that stuff right out of the middle. It's not going to be your most efficient use of fabric. So just keep that in mind, that if you are buying one of our kits, like I said, I didn't really design these for fussy cutting because I didn't want that to mess you up. But keep that in mind if you are buying yardage that you may want to round up slightly. Did I mention that if you are watching this in real time, our yardage is on sale for 25% off with code Peachtree? I told you I would mention it a whole bunch of times. All right, your homework for this week, your challenge, should you choose to accept it, is to gather your fabric for the Sirius Quilt Along. Get all 5 fabrics, whether that's ordering a lovely kit from me. Like I said, I've got 4 varieties here that are looking to go to a new home. And listen, if they go away, then I get to make more. And I love playing with fabric to make more kits. So whether it's ordering a kit from me or putting together yardage, this week is all about gathering your fabrics. If you have any questions about matching things from our shop, please feel free to reach out via email. I will do my best to keep an eye on that inbox and answer any questions you have so all of your pretties can match each other. And then I want you to post a picture. You can post a picture in the Quilting Rockstars group on Facebook. You can post a picture on Instagram and tag me at String and Story. You can email me a picture at hello@stringandstory.com, and I might just throw it up in my Instagram stories. But I cannot wait to see what you choose. If you are new to the Sirius Quilt Along and this is the first that you are hearing about it, the Quilt Along is totally free. I'm going to walk you step by step through making this lovely Sirius quilt, including teaching you tips and tricks for things like fussy cutting and foundation paper piecing. But you do need to buy the pattern. So head to stringandstory.com and click the banner at the top if you're watching this in real time. If you're watching this as a replay on Instagram, you should be able to find the link in my story highlights, and on YouTube, it should be in the caption of this video. Go download the pattern PDF or go purchase a paper copy, and you'll be signed up for our emails you can sign up for our emails via that form as well. And each week, we're going to send you resources on Monday. We're going to meet just like this on Wednesday. And in just a few weeks, we're all going to have fabulous new quilts. Okay? Rockstars, thank you so much for joining me again. My name is Holly Knight, and it's my job to guide you to quilt with confidence. I am so excited to sew with you this summer. Bye for now.